Welcome to Brandon Hall Group's HCMx Radio, the only podcast in the HCM arena that weaves current market research, HR technology, and industry leaders into each episode. Our HCMx Radio host is our Chief Operating Officer and Principal HCM Analyst, Rachel Cook.
Hi, I'm Rachel Cook. I'm the CEO of Brandon Hall Group and the host of our HCMx Radio podcast. I'd like to welcome you today to our episode and our discussion where I'm excited to welcome Bret Kramer, the VP of Sales from Qstream, and David Cariello, the Integrations Lead from Qstream. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, pleasure
It's nice to have you both. And also joining me, my co-host today, is our Principal Learning Analyst, David Wentworth. Hi, David.
Hey, Rachel. Hey, David and Bert. Great, Brett. Good to see you guys.
I see you.
And we're going to be talking today about why integration and automation are critical to the future of L&D. We've been doing a lot of research at Brandon Hall Group around the future of learning, where it's headed. Automation, of course, is at the forefront. And so, today it'll be great to hear from both David and Bret and our learning analyst David as well, just to kind of share some highlights of what you're seeing, some examples that you are that you're excited about, and to kind of tee us off here or to get started. Bret, do you want to share a little bit about your background and also a little bit about Qstream, and then David as well?
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I've come from a background of primarily around SaaS sales for the last 15 years or so. And before that, a lot of work in software development and software development tooling sales. Been at Qstream for right around a year now. And Qstream as a company, we're focused on knowledge reinforcement, the measurement of proficiency, and really the engagement of learners.
Okay, great. And David?
Cariello? Yep, the name's David Cariello, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Rachel. I've got a good amount of experience in cloud software before joining Qstream, as well as within some integrations that are primarily focused around project management tools. I enjoy really delighting people with these kind of custom integrations and really helping increase productivity and learning, of course, across these different platforms. So excited to be here and excited to bring my experience and knowledge into this conversation.
Great. And, I think getting both of your perspectives, David, you're in front and center with a lot of your clients with integration and understanding what their needs are, challenges are. And Bret, kind of seeing the big picture of kind of the entire client life cycle. I think sometimes salespeople or professionals in the learning industry are not given enough of the, I think giving enough of their kind of shine on them a little bit, because they see, from the very beginning, and they develop relationships for years before sometimes clients come on board. I know I've started out in sales and in the research industry, so I, certainly understand like the entire, the importance of sales, and our industry also, it's, it's a lot more to it. It's more consultative, it's developing relationships, truly understanding and partnering with them. So to kind of kick us off here, let's talk about microlearning, and from your understanding, how do you define microlearning?
Yeah, so we look at what we look at as microlearning is a combination really of the spacing effect, the testing effect, and then a microlearning capsule. So microlearning, a lot of times folks think of it as taking a big loaf of bread and slicing it up into little pieces. And for us, it's a lot more than that. That spacing effect, which is really about how you deliver microlearning to your constituencies in a way that's going to cause reinforcement. And then the testing effect and how much importance that has on how the brain works and how it opens up to learning. Those three things combine for us into how we look at microlearning from Qstream.
And in fact, the 3 pillars that you hone in on is engage, learn, reinforce, actually 4 pillars, and analyze.
Yes.
Can you expand a little bit, who wants to take this, David, on, what is that, how does that align to integrating that into their ecosystem and environment?
Yeah. Go ahead, Bret.
I was going to say so it's very important for us. One of the biggest things that customers struggle with is engagement. And it's a very important pillar for us to increase that engagement. You can have the greatest content in the world, but if folks are not engaged with that content, it's not going to have the impact. And so we are truly focused on that engagement. And then from that engagement, you need to ensure that the learning is happening. And so that's that second pillar, not just that folks are sitting through and aware of the content, but that the learning is actually happening. And, as I mentioned with the spacing effect and testing effect, those are a couple of ways that really help to reinforce that training. And then the reinforcement of training over time. So we see folks many times using Qstream after more long form content. And this is where the integration and automation pieces come into play, because you'll see folks going through an LMS long form content. And then after that, they want to reinforce that using Qstream's methodology. And that's where we really see that spacing effect and testing effect happening to do that reinforcement. And then one of the most important things with learning, one of the most surprising things for me when I came into the field, was that we're still measuring how many people are taking courses. That is the primary measurement in learning. And you see it in just about every paper written that that's not the right thing to do. But when you talk with customers, it's still a lot of what they're doing. And so with Qstream, we're very focused on doing that analysis of proficiency over time. At the start of the Qstream, midway through the Qstream, at the end of the Qstream, how is learning really sticking with these folks, and how proficient are they in the material?
And when it comes to the way that integrations really help this, is I think there's quite a number of different pathways. Bret has already highlighted one of them, which is kind of auto enrolling individuals into a tailored Qstream, for example, after they finish some sort of content on a learning management system, for example, right? I think the other direction is this engage pillar that seems to be really resonating with customers, just around fitting into the tools that they're already using, like Slack and MS Teams. We even have some solutions exploring SMS and other things like that. Any kind of channel of communication really is one of those opportunities for us to increase engagement without having to go through something like email, without having to even potentially go into Qstream to answer questions. So I think that's really where there's a lot of excitement around that particular pillar and integrations, but there's opportunity within all the pillars. So
absolutely. And engagement, and David, I'd love for you to weigh in on that piece, especially particularly about some of what we're seeing in our research. And I've been doing a lot of podcasts recently on microlearning, and I'm seeing some similarities of what we are seeing from corporations, as far as kind of everyone kind of wants to, not that it's a fad, but it's kind of the next thing with learning, and they're trying to figure it out. And a lot of this is being driven by technology providers. It's always been that way, technology disrupts the environment, and then we have to figure out how to make it work. So what, David, what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
Well, it's funny because the two things that both Bret and David spoke about are a couple of the reasons why I've been interested in what Qstream has been doing as of late, and they address a couple of things that continually pop up. So if we think of the measurement piece, and the reason why companies still do so much measurement around completion and attendance and things like that is because that's how everything is set up to do. You say all the papers, all the research says don't do it that way, and they agree, they'll nod their head, and then they go back to the office and everything is behind them is built on that foundation, right? So you've got all these new ways of learning and these new moments, but you can't say, well, I know someone sat in a seat for 4 hours, so I don't know how to measure that now. So they have to really rethink what they're measuring. And if they start to focus on the outcomes, it becomes much easier. It doesn't matter what happens in the middle, right? You're just focusing on what happens. So I think that's one of the key things about what you guys are working on. And the other piece, like David was talking about, is the engagement. Always been a challenge, but so many organizations try to attack engagement from inside the content, which is important. You know, the content needs to be engaging and be laid out the right way and have the right colors and the right buttons, all that kind of thing. But you're now assuming that someone has been engaged the entire time up until they clicked and opened that. And if you have put somebody through a rat maze to go find this, you've eroded whatever engagement you've built up into that point. So if you're able to get something to somebody contextually, when and where they need it, while they're thinking about it, while they're working on it, they are already 100% engaged. So like, I know that there is a performance outcome at the end of this thing for me. It's going to help me do this better. And so you're already there. So I think that's why what you guys are doing right now is pretty interesting.
Yeah, David, I love that. We talk so much about flow of work when we're talking to customers. We want to be in their flow of work so it doesn't have to appear like they step into a completely different tool to do the pieces that they need to do next. It's just a crucial component of it.
And I think there's also just not embedding this within the product itself, or not trying to embed all that work. And maybe this whole engaging experience within the actual product saves us a lot of resources and allows us to focus on more important things. So
yeah.
Is that how you also help with the challenges with integration with, you know, multiple logins, tools? You know, we have so many, you know, it doesn't even matter if you're a 20-person company or 200,000 person company. Nowadays, you know, typically we have more systems than we know what to do with, but they're all important, it seems to be. You know, you need payroll, you need a communication tool, you need a sales tool, you need an HR tool. So how do you make it, or how do you simplify it? How does that work in your environment?
Yeah, I think part of that comes down to not trying to be everything to everyone. I mean, the realization that the best SaaS ecosystems are a combination of really good products, but they're a combination of really good products that work well together. And so when we took our approach to integrations and automation that we did, that was foremost in our mind, is we don't want to just provide a way to pass data from one tool to another. We truly want to get to the point where we're providing what Qstream provides, which is a very niche capability, but a very important niche capability, but it's providing it in the flow of work alongside these other tools and doing what Qstream does best, but allowing these other tools to do what they do best without having a bunch of friction. So single sign-on is an obvious one. A lot of folks are getting there these days where you do only need that initial password and you can move through tools. That's a piece of it. But having what's happening in one tool, your HR tool, for example, you onboard a new employee, they come into a particular division in a particular job role. That should cause things to happen in other tools. Qstream is one of those tools. Maybe they go through an onboarding Qstream. Maybe they're enrolled in some LMS content, some LMS pathway for onboarding for that role. All these things need to work together and play off each other without a lot of manual input or friction like we talk about.
Yeah, let me just jump in there with that. You know, we all are very focused on the job right in front of us, and I think a lot of L&D professionals are trying to do all these things we're talking about, and a lot of times the solution is technology. And given this new, mostly remote hybrid work dynamic, everyone needs to remember that these learners that you're going after are employees, right? They're not just learners, they're employees. And so not only are you throwing a whole bunch of technology at them because they're remote, so is the rest of the HCM, you know, environment. So is the organization at large, right? Whatever department they're in. So there is a constant barrage of new different technologies, platforms, things they need to be in, things they need to get in and out of every day. And we have to take that into consideration when we think about, you know, the learning ecosystem. We might think, oh, we're making this somewhat easy and more streamlined, but in the big picture, is it really? How do these things all work together in the course of someone's day?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why it's so important that we design these things well and take a step back, David. I think you highlighted it there, and especially to like going back to your original question, Rachel, it's like reducing the license load is one of the huge values of integration in general. So we're able to take these integrations and design central points of access that potentially reduces license counts. logins at all needed into those systems, right? And so that's where I think a lot of just general value comes from for integrations. Just with any platform is reducing that load. And it's just when you think about the number that you just stated and how many times you actually are logging into all these systems, if you can reduce that anywhere, I mean, you do that every day, all day. I mean, that's a huge time save. And I think there's so much efficiency just from not having to for data that can error out and things like that. So, you know, it's not just with Qstream as much as I want to highlight that. I think there's integration opportunity all over the place, and we're doing this internally as well, not just with Qstream. So.
Yeah, it's like if you think at some of those big airports, it's great. You can go to many different countries, but sometimes to get to the terminals, taking escalators and trains and walking and running to not to miss the next flight. So, you know, I think the more airports can kind of help, you know, guide people into where they need to go, I think that experience becomes better. Same like, you know, with our technology. You know, the less that we can make it complicated for people, because there's just so much, you know, the better experience it's going to be. And I do want to go back to, we talked about, you know, one of the things that we track the most is whether or not, you know, someone has taken a course or, you know, potentially logged on. You know, going back to that testing and the science, you know, the self-paced, you know, can you expand a little bit more about, you know, what do you measure? How do you measure it? And, you know, with, you know, microlearning, how do you know, in fact, you know, what can you condense? What, you know, how does that look like? Or what's your strategy for that?
Yeah, so if we just focus on the testing effect, and I think that's the key piece of that, there's been some great studies, true scientific studies, not marketing studies, but true scientific control group studies around how impactful the testing effect can be. And really what it says is that when a person is presented questions or appears or feels as if they are being tested on material, the way their brain reacts to that material is different. It basically opens up the brain, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of studies here, but it makes the learning stick a little bit better. And so when you approach them with that testing, and then no matter whether they get it right or wrong, you're immediately giving them that micro-learning burst, that piece of content that explains why the correct answer is the correct answer. You're going to have better retention over time. So that's what Qstream, a lot of what Qstream is based on, is that testing effect. And we do that because of the retention needs, but it also allows us to measure proficiency over time. So there's multiple ways to use Qstream. One of those is as an evaluation, very quick set of questions up front or over a short period of time where you're just checking proficiency. You know, you may have a business leader that's concerned about some area of their business and wondering if we're doing good in this particular area. They can run a quick Qstream and get a quick evaluation measurement. Others, you've got an issue in certain areas, whether it's sales enablement or whether it's compliance or whatever it may be. You could use a more classic spacing with Qstream and use that testing effect over time to help with the knowledge retention. Both of those ways work, and they provide that proficiency measurement as you go through the Qstream. So either as all up front or over time, you can see how folks are doing.
I think you just highlighted a pretty solid integration opportunity there, Bret. I think it's around that whole assessment, that initial assessment that you just mentioned, like the shorter Qstreams, where one of the use cases that we've been working on is around passing a Qstream and gaining access to an SSO software, for example. Or maybe you already had access to that and you failed the Qstream, and the Qstream was about that software, and it's something where you need to maintain compliance, and now you're suspended from that because you failed the content. And once you pass that Qstream, then we can automatically make sure that you're reactivated into that software, right? And I think just to piggyback maybe off of that, those studies that you were talking about, Bret, I think there's something that I found really fascinating when I was first learning about this stuff at Qstream, and the research especially was around how a lot of people, there's like a negative connotation to testing in general, right? And people seem to not like to be tested. But what I found to be the most fascinating thing about the research is that even though people didn't like it, that was also the most impactful thing to having that learning stick. And it's kind of like what Bret was saying. Maybe I'm getting too much into the weeds here, but the more difficult it is to retrieve that information at that moment, that's really what makes it stick. And it's really interesting just how all that psychology kind of plays into it.
Yeah, especially when companies make investment choices on smile sheets alone. We've seen it. A company will say, oh, we love this program. Okay, that's the program we're going to go with. Meanwhile, it's doing nothing. People just enjoy it. Or they struggle a little bit, but they're actually changing something. But that's really highlights why it's so important that smile sheets are not bad data. Completions aren't bad data, but they tell you almost nothing by themselves.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think, it's probably not for our conversation today, but now we're talking a lot by why people hate testing so much. It'd be interesting to kind of more explore, why is that the case? Me personally, actually, I like testing. I don't know why, but I've always liked testing. I feel that, I feel like you are, there's purpose to why you're learning something, or you're taking a course, or you're, if I'm not interested in it, then that's one thing. Then maybe, I don't really care about the testing so much. But if this is your profession and you want to get better and you want to, explore new opportunities and, continue to grow, you need to learn, and you need to make sure the learning's reinforced. And I think that's what's missing, especially when you're in lower grades. If you look back to your elementary or high school, a lot of the testing was, you don't remember a lot of it. And I think that's where it stems from, where people have just a real anxiety about studying and cramming, and if all these, not courses, but classes that you have to prepare for. And I see it with our kids. So I think, schools are trying to get better at that, but I think that's where the anxiety and the negative negativity about it comes from. And then that then transfers into the workplace. So if we can kind of figure out how to rewire people where it's a good thing to get tested, maybe, and if they don't like it, then maybe they're just, I don't know.
I think it comes down to the right quantity.
Right.
So, folks, we keep things very quick and very, very well timed. So you're not making a huge investment. You're getting a couple of questions every other day, 2 or 3 questions. And that spacing and that amount of investment really helps to make us excited for users. They look at it as a very minimal investment of their time, but then it has a big impact. So it's really taking both parts of that science, how important the testing is, but also putting it in people's hands in a way that is digestible and that they do enjoy. Really comes down to both.
Yeah, I think you highlighted something really interesting there too, Rachel, is just around kind of human psyche and the purpose behind testing. I thought that was a really interesting way of articulating that. And I think not only does, Qstream and general business design and how you actually design the content within a Qstream have an impact around the purpose, right? What is the strategy behind it? Are you going to provide rewards or anything like that? But I think one of the most fascinating things here with integrations is that we can use these automations to help influence people into those positive things. So I think integrating into Slack is one of those simple examples where it's just, here it is accessible. You don't have that excuse really to not engage anymore because it's right there. And there's kind of all kinds of different examples. I'm blanking a little bit on them right now, but when you create automations that reward the users to use them and to use them appropriately, and you have a business design and structure around that, it makes that whole ecosystem and environment that much more positive and engaging. So
yeah, one of the most interesting integration stories that we talk about a lot with frontline workers. Think about food service workers and those types of things. the reward and recognition programs that are out there. There's a number of different recognition programs out in the market today. And a lot of organizations are using those and trying to encourage workers to do certain things based on those reward and recognition systems. The integrations that we can have with Qstream, if you can measure proficiency, not just completion, but proficiency, and reward people based on how well they did on that, it really brings both those things together and gets them excited about taking courses like this.
It's exciting, and it's definitely the way that the workplace is headed,
Yeah.
and in being that you have a solution that can help get their employees there, and and you've thought a lot about the design and the integration and the engagement. What else are you excited for as we wrap up this year or look into next year?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Really, the integration automation pieces are just real exciting for us. The individualization of the coaching that can come from that, the individualization of the training that comes from that is really exciting. We're looking also at a couple of new markets for us, really getting into the first responder market. There's so clear a need to increase the performance of training programs in those areas. And so we're having a lot of great pilots already occurring in that space right now. The food safety and quality I mentioned, I think that's an interesting space for us as well. But all of it is happening because of the integration and automation capabilities that we're having, and the ability of taking that and combining it with what Qstream does so well to be able to bring it to these other markets.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Bret. Thank you, David and David. Do either of you have anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, just it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and we're really excited to see what this upcoming year has in store for us, and our Qstream Connect integrations should be really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here. Thank you, David.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, have a great day. Stay healthy. Thank you all for listening in, and that's a wrap.